So I think to get a general understanding of the current situation in terms of how the industry has evolved and taken a back seat in terms of how much output it can produce. Anurag, what's your assessment of the current situation of the Indian music industry right now?
I think the COVID-19 pandemic and just like the lockdown and things like that, it's set things back quite a bit. But once again, I mean, at the same time, all these the reason we've got this far ahead was because there were just so many people who were doing great, innovative things. And I think what sort of come through in this time is that people are still trying to do great, innovative things, and even better, they're trying to sort of put community at the center of it. That's what it feels like. It feels like, musicians are trying to help each other out, or there's existing brands or promoters who are, I guess, trying to do things with other musicians as opposed to just looking out for themselves.
Even from like a consumer's point of view, I noticed that so many large companies like even NH7 Weekender and a lot of these large music festivals and these brands have sort of adapted their own business models to kind of suit the changing social media platforms and the trends that make access the main priority. So in your opinion, I kind of wanted to talk about how these platforms have sort of made access much more easier for the average consumer and how that's important, especially during a time like this.
It's still a double-edged sword in some way because I recently joined Instagram. I was not on Instagram for a
Oh
very
yeah.
long time, for very willfully. Yeah, so far, I mean, yeah, till a certain point I was avoiding all the peer pressure, but yeah, I mean, I got on there, and now, like, I think every night at like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, first five stories are just live feeds, right? So I think in one way it's sort of already reached a saturation point in some sense, where a musician is going live every day, every evening, and they're
Yeah,
just sort
true.
of fair enough, like they're very communicative, maybe they're very extroverted, so this is their way of trying to reach out to musicians, reach out to fans, see what happens. So that's one side, and I guess the other side is that they're definitely sort of, yeah, like you said, like there's more of a platform, and it's sort of leveled like the playing field. Like I've seen people like Ehsan Nurani, for example, like he's sort of invited a lot of musicians onto his feed to give them like a spotlight, a showcase chance. So yeah, I feel like musicians are slowly learning sort of how to engage with these kind of platforms.
Even like from a corporate's point of view, I think there's a large scope for them to see interest in things like even independent musicians. I think there's a lot of room for large corporations to be like, oh, there's a singer songwriter sitting at home, has a master following of like a couple thousand people, and he or she is significantly putting in the effort to develop this really sort of nascent fan base. So in terms of how these larger corporations sort of oftentimes take advantage of independent singer songwriters. Anurag, what do you think? How do you think this capitalist method of or the structure of large labels or large record companies or large brands sort of raking in the benefits and the clout that sort of indie independent singer songwriters and musicians have amassed?
Yeah, it's funny because like I think as much as musicians themselves have a following, brands seem to try to convince musicians that they can amplify their following and just give them a bigger reach and things like that, which is all fair, like I guess it's fair for labels to sort of make those claims and maybe even back it up, which is totally fair. There is always a trade-off, like the musician is always making a trade-off, which is how it's sort of been for a while. Like, and as much as we can talk about how the internet has democratized things and maybe made like a level playing field, anybody can put their music out and get big and get their following, like at the same time, like even right now, like I feel like artists do have to make that trade-off with the fact that, say for example, that they have a brand that wants them to come on their page and go live through their page, or that they say that, hey, you go live through your own page because you have such a great following, but we just want to sort of tag on to you and sort of like say that, hey, like we're doing this, and hey, maybe you can raise funds for relief, or you can raise funds for artists themselves, like a pay what you want sort of thing, which is all like I think there's a lot of things that have been rushed into, and a lot of things that haven't been figured out in on that front. The fact that they say pay what you want, that they say that it should be quote unquote donation based, So like all those things, I feel like is still a problem, because like when you go to see an artist at a show, like nobody at the door is asking you for a donation. People at the
Yeah.
door are asking you to pay money to see that artist. So uh, I think that's pretty much why, like, slowly, at least right now, from what I'm seeing, like there have been slowly like more conscious efforts to go into ticketed live streams, which
Mhm.
is I think the guys in Skillbox are doing some of those things. They're trying it out, and yeah, it's interesting. Uh, so let's see. Like I hope that there's sort of like a system that prevails in giving the artist a good enough share of it. From what I've been reading, just on a general global perspective, like I know that like the way brands and just like promoters and bigger like event companies work, like it's just when we do eventually go back to like live shows, like the whole model is going to be definitely different, where like I feel like guarantees are going to change, and like just the gate
Mm.
share is probably going to
Yeah.
be more of an accepted form. So yeah, it's all quite interesting to see just things being shaken up
Mhm.
basically.
Yeah, and I think that's a really big if that you bring up though. Like for the present time being, we really don't have any clue whether or not things will go back to quote unquote normal. So I think it's really interesting to see the kind of end term perspective that either brands or musicians have at large. Like in you're all in this industry. Do you see this being a sustainable model? Do you see this being something that could last not only in this unique pandemic time, but as something that significantly marks a change in democratizing access or making independent success more commonplace than anything else? So do you see this as something that's truly long term, or just something that's novel for the unique time that we're in say the last couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, right now it still feels like something that's some sort of a stopgap measure, so that you know so that, like, I guess that the system is not completely overturned, where like the stakeholders are still the stakeholders and things like that. So like I still feel like it's still in that space where it's a stopgap position, which we see, I think, in other fields and just larger general perception, right? Like even something like healthcare, for example, like you just know all these things need like a systemic overhaul, but
Right.
the way it's being sort of like dealt with right now is that it is a sort of stopgap measure, which is, yeah, it's a little troubling. But hopefully, like there's at least I guess sizable change. Like that's all I can be like idealistically hopeful for, that like there's going to be no overhaul, but maybe some people will say that, hey, yeah, like maybe we should be paying artists more for streams, or maybe we should be giving people more money for gigs and stuff like that. It's increased to the point that like it is my major source of stress in life, just getting like emails and stuff, and Facebook messages everywhere basically. There's another music journalist, Amit Gulbaksani, obviously, who has been maintaining a crowdsourced Excel sheet,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he recently mentioned that he got like it's May right now, and I just checked it. He's got like over he's got exactly 209 releases on there, and that's excluding
Wow.
singles. So if you add singles, I'm pretty sure that list easily
Yeah.
doubles.
True.
So
True.
yeah, you're looking at least like 500 total releases by the middle of the year, and I guess specifically in these last 3 months, 2 months, I suppose it's definitely increased. Uh, yeah.
I found it really interesting, Anurag, that you mentioned how like the sheer volume of singles and albums and EPs that are being released. Because even recently, like for example, Peter Cat Recording Company released Happy Holidays, and for bands like that who have these really large dedicated fan bases, it's refreshing to see unused or old content being released. Like never before, never heard singles, things like that. So for larger bands that have already created these fan bases in the industry, it's kind of refreshing, for at least for loyal fans to be like, oh, that's perhaps the song that they've had in their hard drive for a couple of years now. It's only now that they've gotten the opportunity to be like, okay, we're gonna make that public. We're gonna let a lot of people listen to that and enjoy the unreleased work that we have.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, for the record, like I think some of the stuff on Happy Holidays is at least like 10 years old or something. So this is just
Yeah.
it's just songs that they never wanted to put out, and now they felt like maybe we should put it out,
Maybe
which
we
is fair
should.
point. And like it's something that they exclusively released via Bandcamp and Instamojos for
Hmm.
purchase. So I guess once again, it's sort of like a move by a band that, yeah, like you said, like they have a fan base, so they're trying to figure out what they can do with that fan base, or how they can engage them in a way that sort of like is useful, right? So because you don't just want to go live on Instagram and say that, hey guys, how are you guys doing, and here's a
Hmm.
song, and bye, and take care, wash your hands, stuff like that. Like that's all fine.
Take care,
Everybody's saying
wash
that
your
anyway.
hands.
Yeah, everybody's saying that anyways, right? So I guess in the case of Happy Holidays, for example, I suppose they're trying to see if fans really value their music to the extent that they will pay for it, basically, right? So especially at a time where it can be their only source of income foreseeably, like because gigs, they probably had a bunch of gigs, they probably had Europe shows, they have an international fan base on their side as well. So all those things can really sort of like, I think they've been making the right moves that way, sort of holding back on just doing what everybody else is doing. And yeah, like I mean, I think at the end of it, it sort of like ties into what I always feel right now, is that the artist has to provide an experience to like their fans, to their listeners, to any random person, even, like so that they
Hmm.
can convert them into a
True.
fan. Like it can't just be that here I am on your feed and I'm gonna play your favorite songs. Like even that is probably like really works only if like everybody knows your songs and everybody's
Yeah.
just
It
they're
kind of
just
has a
like, hey.
ceiling to that as well.
True. Yeah. I mean, they're just like, hey, man, just play the song. Like it's stuff like that. All the comments will just be like, hey, man, why when
वो
are
वाला
you
song
gonna
बजा
play
दे
that
bro.
song? Yeah, exactly. So I feel like in the meantime, like what artists are, I think the artists who will really like thrive in this scenario are the people who maybe bring in like a lot more storytelling into their sort of like live streams, or if they just sort of make like a different experience out of it, where they're not just playing songs, maybe they're talking about their songs, maybe
Hmm.
they're talking to other musicians about their songs, and sort of like giving the fans something intimate, I feel, because it's not enough that a musician is sort of letting you into, say, just even for example providing like a visual access into their room, like that itself is like a great cue for artists to realize that, hey, like if people are looking into my room, like they should really be able to connect with me on that level.
With that, I'd like to thank you, Anurag, for joining us today. It's been a really fruitful conversation. If you like the kind of content that we put out, please like our page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and stay tuned for more wonderful conversations that we have on Campus Box Studio. Thank you so much.